chained to a rock for eternity, having his liver torn out daily by an eagle, only to regenerate and suffer again. Many gods feared to challenge Zeus, and many who tried faced his wrath. Quick question. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. But Prometheus was not always considered a rebel. In fact, he was once Zeus's most trusted ally. Prometheus was one of the wisest titans, born to Iapetus and the sea nymph Clymene during the chaotic age when the titans ruled the cosmos with an iron fist. His birth came at a time when the universe was still young and wild, when primordial forces battled for control over creation itself. Unlike his fellow titans who were known for their massive size, brute strength, and overwhelming pride, Prometheus possessed something far more dangerous than physical power: the gift of foresight. His name literally means forethought, and this wasn't just a clever nickname. He could actually see events before they happened, witness the threads of fate as they wove together, and understand consequences that others couldn't even imagine. This supernatural ability made him incredibly valuable to anyone smart enough to listen, but also incredibly dangerous to those who preferred to rule through fear and ignorance. When the great war between the Titans and the younger Olympian gods broke out, a conflict that would later be called the Titanomachy, most expected Prometheus to fight alongside his Titan brothers and sisters. After all, family loyalty was everything in the ancient world, and betraying your own blood was considered the ultimate sin. The war itself was brutal beyond imagination. It lasted for 10 years and shook the very foundations of reality. Mountains crumbled, seas boiled, and the sky itself seemed to crack under the weight of divine fury. But Prometheus did something that shocked everyone, gods and mortals alike. He switched sides and joined Zeus and the younger gods, because his gift of foresight had shown him exactly how this war would end. He had seen Zeus standing victorious over the broken bodies of the Titans, had witnessed the birth of a new age, and he chose to be on the winning side. This wasn't just a simple betrayal, though. It was a calculated decision that required incredible courage. Imagine turning against your entire family, knowing that if you were wrong, you would face punishment worse than death. But Prometheus wasn't wrong, and his decision to help Zeus proved to be the turning point of the war. He provided the younger gods with strategies, warned them of Titan ambushes, and even helped Zeus discover the location of the Cyclopes, who would forge the legendary thunderbolts that became Zeus's signature weapon. Many gods respected his counsel after this betrayal of his own family, seeing him not as a traitor, but as someone wise enough to choose the future over the past. Zeus, grateful for this unexpected alliance, rewarded Prometheus's loyalty by making him one of his closest advisors and giving him a position of incredible power in the New World Order. If you're enjoying this dive into ancient mythology, hit that subscribe button. Sigil's Sanctum brings you the most fascinating stories from across mythologies. Prometheus would eventually become not just Zeus's advisor, but also the protector and creator of mankind itself. According to some versions of the myth, Zeus had grown bored after winning the war and wanted to create something new, something that would worship the gods and give meaning to their victory. So he tasked Prometheus with a special project, creating a new race of beings that would populate the earth. Prometheus took this responsibility seriously, spending countless hours molding the first humans from clay and water, carefully shaping each feature, breathing life into them with his own divine essence. But here's where things get interesting. Prometheus didn't just create humans as simple worshippers. He gave them something special, something that would later get him into serious trouble. He gave them the spark of intelligence, the ability to think and reason and grow beyond their original purpose. There were countless times when Prometheus intervened to save humanity from Zeus's increasingly destructive temper tantrums. You see, Zeus had a problem. He was incredibly powerful, but he was also incredibly petty. When humans forgot to offer the proper sacrifices, Zeus would send floods. When they questioned divine authority, he would send plagues. When they seemed too happy or prosperous, he would find reasons to punish them just to remind them who was in charge. But every time Zeus raised his hand against humanity, Prometheus was there to soften the blow. When Zeus wanted to flood the entire earth because he was angry at one particular group of humans, Prometheus secretly warned the good people, telling them to build boats and head for higher ground. When Zeus sent deadly plagues to teach mortals about respect, Prometheus appeared in dreams to teach them medicine, showing them which herbs could heal, how to set broken bones, and how to deliver babies safely. But Prometheus didn't stop there. When Zeus tried to keep humans ignorant and primitive, believing that knowledge was too dangerous for mortals, Prometheus became their secret teacher. He showed them how to read the movements of stars and predict the seasons, crucial knowledge for farming and navigation. He taught them how to work with metals, turning soft copper and tin into hard bronze that could be shaped into tools and weapons. He revealed the secrets of mathematics, helping them build better homes, design irrigation systems, and create art that would last for generations. He even taught them about fire, not yet giving it to them, but explaining how it worked, what it could do, and why it was so important. The humans began to worship Prometheus almost as much as they worshipped Zeus, and this shift in devotion didn't go unnoticed in the halls of Mount Olympus. In their prayers, humans would thank Zeus for creating them, but they would thank Prometheus for caring about them. They built temples to both gods, but the offerings to Prometheus were given with genuine love and gratitude, while the offerings to Zeus were often given out of fear. They even claimed that Prometheus cared more for mortals than Zeus himself, and honestly, they weren't wrong about that assessment. Zeus had created humans almost as an afterthought, like a child might create toys for temporary amusement. When the toys broke or stopped being entertaining, Zeus was perfectly willing to throw them away and start over with something new. But Prometheus saw something completely different when he looked at humanity. He saw potential that even Zeus couldn't imagine. He saw beings who could think, create, and grow beyond what their creators had planned. He watched as humans took the knowledge he gave them and built upon it, creating new innovations that surprised even him. He saw them form communities based on cooperation rather than fear, develop art that captured beauty in ways that moved even the gods, and show kindness to strangers that put divine generosity to shame. To Prometheus, humans weren't just creations, they were his children, and like any good parent, he wanted them to surpass their origins and become something amazing. It wasn't long before Zeus's initial amusement with Prometheus's attachment to humans turned into suspicion, and that suspicion slowly transformed into dangerous distrust. The king of the gods started to notice things that worried him. The way humans looked to Prometheus for guidance instead of simply accepting Zeus's commands, the way they seemed to be growing more independent and confident with each passing generation, and most troubling of all, the way they were beginning to question whether the gods always knew what was best for them. Zeus began to wonder if his most loyal advisor was becoming too attached to these mortal creatures, and whether that attachment might one day become a direct threat to divine authority and the natural order of things. One day when Zeus grew angry at mankind's ingratitude during a great feast where humans had dared to keep the best portions of meat for themselves instead of offering it all to the gods, he decided to punish them severely in a way that would remind them of their place in the cosmic order. This wasn't just another one of Zeus's typical outbursts. This was calculated, cold revenge designed to break humanity's growing spirit of independence. Zeus had been watching as humans became more confident, more self-reliant, and more willing to question divine commands, and he decided that enough was enough. The final straw came when Prometheus himself had helped humans trick Zeus during a sacrifice ceremony. Prometheus had cleverly arranged the offerings so that Zeus would choose the portion that looked impressive but contained only bones and fat, while humans kept the actual meat. When Zeus realized he had been outsmarted, his rage was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Zeus was determined to keep humanity in darkness and cold, believing that comfort and knowledge made mortals too bold and rebellious. He declared that fire, the most precious gift of civilization, would be forever forbidden to humans. This wasn't just about warmth or cooking. Fire represented knowledge, progress, and independence. With fire, humans could work metal, light their way through darkness, cook food that would keep them healthy, and gather together in communities that felt safe and permanent. Without fire, they would remain primitive, dependent, and constantly reminded of their helplessness compared to the gods. Zeus saw this punishment as perfect justice. Humans had tried to be clever, so he would take away the very thing that made cleverness possible. Prometheus watched in horror as humans began to suffer without fire, and each passing day made the situation worse. During the cold nights, families huddled together for warmth, with children crying from the bitter chill that seemed to seep into their very bones. The elderly and sick began dying at alarming rates because they couldn't stay warm enough to fight off illness. Food spoiled quickly without the ability to cook and preserve it properly, leading to hunger and disease that spread through communities like wildfire. Humans tried to eat raw meat and plants, but many became violently ill. They attempted to stay warm by wearing animal skins, but without the ability to properly cure and prepare the leather, the hides rotted and became useless. Prometheus made multiple attempts to reason with Zeus, pleading with his former ally to show mercy to these innocent creatures who were paying the price for what was essentially a misunderstanding. He tried every argument he could think of. He reminded Zeus of all the worship and devotion humans had shown, pointed out that they had learned their lesson and would be more respectful in the future, and even offered to take personal responsibility for their behavior going forward. But Zeus remained unmoved by human suffering, and each conversation ended the same way, with Zeus declaring that mortals needed to learn their place, and that compassion would only encourage more rebellion. Zeus saw fire as the ultimate divine power that he could withhold from mortals, a way to demonstrate the absolute difference between gods and humans. In his mind, giving fire back to humans would be admitting that his punishment had been wrong, and Zeus never admitted mistakes. He also worried that if he showed mercy now, humans would see it as weakness and become even more rebellious in the future. To Zeus, this was about more than just fire. It was about maintaining the cosmic hierarchy where gods ruled and mortals obeyed without question. He believed that suffering would make humans more grateful for divine protection and more willing to accept their inferior position in the universe. Eventually, Prometheus grew tired of watching innocent humans suffer for what he saw as Zeus's petty pride and cruel indifference to justice. The breaking point came when Prometheus witnessed a particular family, a young mother trying to keep her sick baby warm during a freezing winter night, using nothing but her own body heat while she slowly grew weaker and weaker from hunger and cold. This woman had done nothing wrong, had always been faithful to the gods, and yet she was dying because Zeus couldn't let go of his anger. Prometheus realized that no amount of reasoning would change Zeus's mind, and that every day he delayed meant more innocent deaths. So he decided he would defy the king of gods himself, fully understanding that this decision would change everything and likely cost him his freedom, if not his existence. Prometheus, knowing the terrible consequences that awaited anyone who defied Zeus directly, ascended to Mount Olympus one final time, hoping against hope that he could find some way to reach whatever compassion might still exist in Zeus's heart. He had prepared his most eloquent arguments, gathered examples of human suffering that would move even the hardest divine heart, and planned to offer himself as a permanent hostage to ensure human good behavior if Zeus would just restore fire to the world. The journey up the mountain felt different this time, heavier, more final, as if the very air knew that this conversation would determine the fate of both humanity and Prometheus himself. There was no mercy given that day, and Zeus remained completely unmoved by even the most heartbreaking stories of human suffering that Prometheus shared. Zeus had made his decision, and in his mind, showing compassion now would be seen as weakness by both gods and mortals. He told Prometheus that humans deserved their fate, that they had brought this punishment on themselves through their arrogance and ingratitude, and that any god who truly cared about cosmic order should support this harsh but necessary lesson. Zeus even suggested that Prometheus's concern for humans was starting to look like disloyalty to his fellow gods, a dangerous accusation that carried serious implications. When Zeus had made his final refusal, dismissing Prometheus from his presence with a warning never to bring up this topic again, Prometheus realized that words had failed and that only action remained. But instead of accepting Zeus's will and abandoning humanity to their cruel fate, Prometheus made a decision that would echo through eternity. He decided he would steal the sacred fire directly from the gods themselves, fully aware that direct defiance of Zeus was considered the ultimate sin, a crime so serious that it had never been attempted before, and would certainly result in punishment beyond imagination. As he left Zeus's throne room for what he knew would be the last time, Prometheus felt the weight of what he was about to do, but also the certainty that some things were worth any sacrifice. Prometheus carefully planned the theft of fire, knowing he would only get one chance, and that failure would mean not only his own destruction, but the permanent loss of any hope for humanity. He waited for the perfect moment when the gods were distracted by their own affairs, then quietly made his way to the sacred forge where Hephaestus kept the divine flames that powered all creation. Using a hollow fennel stalk that could hold the flame without being consumed, Prometheus carefully captured a portion of the sacred fire, feeling its divine power flowing through him as he committed the ultimate act of rebellion against divine authority. Prometheus brought fire to mankind in secret, traveling under cover of darkness to avoid detection by Zeus's many spies and informants. He appeared to humans not as a conquering god demanding worship, but as a friend bringing a precious gift. The knowledge and power that Zeus had so jealously guarded for the exclusive use of the gods, Prometheus gave freely to mortals without asking for anything in return, except that they use this gift wisely and remember the price that was paid for their freedom. He taught them how to kindle flames, how to keep fire burning safely, and how to use its power to transform their lives and build the foundations of true civilization. Anyone who witnessed this gift would see civilization itself ignite before their eyes, as humans immediately understood the incredible value of what they had received. Within days, the first cooked meals were shared around warm fires that pushed back both cold and darkness. Metalworkers began forging tools and weapons that were stronger and more precise than anything they had created before. Communities gathered around central fires that became the hearts of villages and cities, places where people could share stories, make plans, and build the social bonds that would define human culture for thousands of years to come. Children who had been crying from cold were now laughing and playing in the warmth, and the elderly who had been near death found new strength and comfort that extended their lives and allowed them to pass on their wisdom to younger generations. Word spread throughout Olympus of the theft that Prometheus had committed, and the reaction was immediate and terrifying. The other gods were shocked that anyone would dare to directly defy Zeus in such a bold and public way, especially someone who had once been his most trusted advisor. Some gods were secretly impressed by Prometheus's courage, but none dared to voice support for fear of becoming targets themselves. Hermes, Zeus's messenger, was the first to bring the news to the king of gods, and witnesses later said that Zeus's roar of rage could be heard across all 9 realms. The theft wasn't just about fire, it was about the precedent it set. If one god could successfully defy Zeus and get away with it, others might be encouraged to challenge his authority as well. Prometheus became the target of Zeus's infinite rage, and the king of gods decided that this betrayal required a punishment so severe that it would serve as a permanent warning to anyone who might consider similar rebellion. Zeus couldn't simply kill Prometheus because, as an immortal titan, death wasn't really an option. Instead, Zeus devised something far worse, a punishment that would last forever and serve as a constant reminder of what happened to those who defied divine will. Zeus wanted every god and mortal to witness the consequences of challenging his authority, so the punishment had to be public, permanent, and absolutely brutal. Zeus called upon his most skilled craftsmen and his most loyal servants to create the perfect torture device. He commissioned chains that could never be broken, forged from adamantine, the strongest metal in existence, harder than diamond and infused with divine power that made escape impossible. The chains were designed not just to hold Prometheus, but to cause constant pain, digging into his flesh and tightening whenever he tried to move or struggle. Zeus then chose the location carefully, a desolate rock in the Caucasus Mountains, far from civilization but visible to both gods and mortals who passed by, so that Prometheus's suffering would serve as a perpetual warning. But the chains and the isolation weren't enough for Zeus's sense of justice. He wanted Prometheus to experience daily agony that would never end, never become bearable through familiarity, and never allow for even a moment of peace. So Zeus commissioned a special creature for this punishment, a massive eagle with talons like razors and a beak that could tear through divine flesh. This wasn't an ordinary bird, but a creature of divine wrath, created specifically to be Prometheus's eternal tormentor. The eagle was programmed with a single terrible purpose. Every day at dawn, it would descend from the sky and tear open Prometheus's stomach, devouring his liver while he remained fully conscious and aware of every moment of agony. Zeus chained Prometheus to the rock in the Caucasus Mountains and sent this eagle to devour his liver daily, creating a cycle of torture that would continue for eternity. The liver was chosen specifically because the ancient Greeks believed it was the seat of emotion and regeneration. By having it consumed daily, Prometheus would not only experience physical agony, but also emotional torture, as he felt his very capacity for feeling being ripped away each day. But here's the truly cruel part. Because Prometheus was immortal, his liver would regenerate completely each night, growing back during the dark hours so that he would be whole again when the eagle returned at sunrise. With his immortal nature, Prometheus would regenerate each night only to suffer again at dawn, creating an endless loop of hope and despair that was perhaps worse than the physical pain itself. Every evening, as his body healed, Prometheus might feel a moment of relief, might dare to hope that perhaps this time would be different. But every morning brought the same horrific reality, the sound of wings, the shadow falling across his face, and the knowledge that another day of agony was about to begin. The psychological torture of this cycle was something Zeus had calculated carefully, knowing that for someone as intelligent as Prometheus, the mental anguish of anticipating daily torture might be even worse than the torture itself. Years passed, then decades, then centuries, and still Prometheus remained chained to his rock, enduring his daily torment without complaint. Despite the unimaginable suffering, he never once regretted his decision to help humanity, never begged Zeus for mercy, and never expressed any desire to undo what he had done. Occasionally, gods or heroes would pass by and see him there, and some were moved to pity by his condition. But none dared to interfere with Zeus's punishment, knowing that they would face similar consequences for showing mercy to a condemned rebel. Prometheus is probably one of the most heroic figures in Greek mythology, though his story is often misunderstood or simplified into a simple tale of rebellion and punishment. Most people know him as the Titan who stole fire, but they miss the deeper meaning of his sacrifice and what it represents about the relationship between power and justice. Prometheus wasn't a rebel for the sake of rebellion. He was someone who saw innocent suffering and chose to act, even when he knew the personal cost would be devastating. His story isn't just about defying authority, it's about having the courage to do what's right, even when everyone else is too afraid to act. He is often remembered primarily for his defiance and his punishment, but Prometheus had only humanity's welfare at heart when he made his fateful decision. Every action he took, from switching sides in the war between titans and gods to teaching humans about medicine and mathematics, was motivated by genuine love and concern for creatures he saw as his children. Unlike many of the gods who viewed mortals as entertainment or sources of worship, Prometheus saw humans as beings with unlimited potential who deserved the chance to grow and flourish. His theft of fire wasn't an act of spite against Zeus, but an act of love for humanity. Prometheus's story shows us that even the gods can abuse their power, and sometimes righteousness requires rebellion against unjust authority. Zeus's punishment of humanity for a minor slight was disproportionate and cruel, targeting innocent people who had done nothing wrong. His refusal to show mercy, even when presented with evidence of undeserved suffering, revealed the kind of tyranny that makes rebellion not just acceptable, but morally necessary. Prometheus understood that there are times when obedience to unjust power becomes complicity in evil, and that true loyalty sometimes requires standing up to those in charge. The story also reveals uncomfortable truths about how power works in the real world. Zeus punished Prometheus rather than admitting his own mistakes because tyrants can never acknowledge being wrong without undermining their authority. The other gods remained silent during Prometheus's torture, not because they agreed with the punishment, but because they feared for their own safety. This dynamic, where everyone knows something is wrong but no one speaks up because the cost of dissent is too high, is something that echoes throughout human history and continues to this day. Even in eternal torment, Prometheus can be seen as a symbol of sacrifice for the greater good, representing the idea that some principles are worth any personal cost. His willingness to endure infinite suffering so that humans could have fire and all the civilization it represents makes him one of mythology's greatest examples of selfless heroism. The fire he stole wasn't just physical flame, it was the spark of knowledge, creativity, and progress that allowed humanity to build art, science, philosophy, and all the achievements that make life meaningful rather than just survivable. Modern interpretations of Prometheus have seen him as everything from a symbol of scientific progress to a representation of revolutionary spirit, and all of these readings capture something true about his character. He represents the part of the human spirit that refuses to accept that things have to stay the way they are, the drive to push boundaries and challenge limitations even when doing so comes with serious risks. In many ways, every scientist who challenges accepted theories, every artist who creates something new, and every activist who fights against injustice is following in Prometheus's footsteps. If you've enjoyed uncovering the true story behind Prometheus and learning about this ultimate act of divine rebellion, then please consider leaving a thumbs up as it helps promote the video and allows Sigil Sanctum to grow and bring you more fascinating stories from across world mythologies. The story of Prometheus reminds us that sometimes the greatest heroes are those who are willing to suffer for others, and that the most important battles are often fought not for glory or recognition, but simply because someone needs to stand up and do what's right. If there's any other mythological figure you'd like me to explore, or if you have thoughts about Prometheus and what his story means in our modern world, let me know in the comment section below. As always, I've been your host at Sigil Sanctum, where we unlock the mysteries of ancient wisdom and discover how these timeless stories still speak to us today.